This is Actualize Freedom, straight talk on growing clicks and conversions on Amazon FBA from people doing it every day. Now here's your host, digital marketing acrobat, Danny Kenji Carlson.
What's up, guys? Danny Carlson here with the Actualize Freedom podcast, and today we have someone you've probably seen. If you spent any time in Amazon seller Facebook groups, you've probably seen the FBA Kings group with the master himself, Troy Johnston. In my opinion, he's putting out some of the most well-informed and intricate content when it comes to selling on Amazon, especially product launches, systems, and he is one of the founders of Seller.tools, which if you aren't following the stuff they put out, you should definitely be following their blogs and join their Facebook group because it's really good stuff. So welcome from exactly the opposite side of the world, 12 hours away from my time zone here in Bali, Mr. Troy Johnston. How you doing?
Awesome. Doing great, Danny. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for the great intro. Really appreciate that.
Oh, well, I mean, you certainly have been making a name for yourself with the good information you've been putting out there. And something that I know that you have a really interesting developed opinion about is, what should Amazon sellers be focusing on when it comes to launching new products? And a lot of people, they like to get a little bit of the shiny object syndrome, so to speak, and just like think that this is the next thing or this is the one thing that's going to do it. But I know you have a much more developed take on that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, and we can all be guilty of this. I mean, if you find yourself as a seller sort of empathizing with this, where, whether it's a piece of content or a piece of insight or just being drawn by another external traffic source or mechanism, or it's very easy to get drawn into these other tactics, really. But when you really boil down what Amazon rewards, thankfully for sellers, for the most part, it's very specific and it's somewhat refined. And so we're finding, and we're really trying to champion for sellers, the idea of kind of getting back to the basics that are rooted in, okay, we understand Amazon rewards this. Let's just take this really deep and not feel like we've got to go wide, because it's much harder to go from A to Z than it is to just get A, B, and C really right, really dialed in. And then, again, hoping to automate, create those systems, those processes so you can really scale that type of competitive advantage.
Awesome. And so the real fundamentals here, like what would you break down? It's the unsexy way to do it, right? So if you're telling people, hey, just do this one crazy launch strategy and it's going to work, as opposed to focus on these core fundamentals and it's going to work. It's not the sexy thing, but like what are the core fundamentals that you think that people should really focus on?
Absolutely. So, I mean, your foundation should really be set on doing things like keyword research, right? So for some sellers, we love it and obsess it, and others we see it as just a sort of a formality. It's just something you have to do. But you have to keep in mind what it impacts. It impacts both the paid and organic side of things on Amazon. So getting that right, it's literally that cornerstone, because it is the force multiplier. If you can get organic visibility by getting your keywords right, placing them within your listings with the proper weighting in mind, so understanding that facet of Amazon, and then of course when you deploy it through broad, exact, different Amazon PPC efforts and mechanisms. It's all rooted in buyer intent, which on Amazon is driven by keywords. So it's so crucial to do that right. Find ways you're not doing it like everybody else. But like I said, that fits right in that bucket of a foundational piece that Amazon, as much as we've seen and as much as we can kind of future pace and see into the future, keywords will be immensely important and immensely valuable. So keyword research, listing optimization, again, those have some synergy with one another. And then generally PPC. I personally really champion the idea of, once you get that keyword research right, going to your exact match PPC and being willing to really view break even or even overspending on your PPC as the cost of doing business. Because again, it's force multipliers. You do one thing that has multiple benefits on Amazon, where you can get that organic visibility, get your product more prominent based on those specific keywords and keyword phrases. And then there can be synergy if you do that across a number of keywords as well. So those are some really easy foundational things that I think, Danny, you're probably right in saying it, they're somewhat unsexy, but you do those right, and that's another digit to your bottom line, the potential for another comma. I mean, that's something I can really attribute my success to having done, two, 3 years ago when building one of my flagship brands.
Yeah, and so I mean, people don't love to go do keyword research and stuff like that, but what do you think are a few maybe underutilized ways of finding those keywords or identifying, which keywords really should be in the listing that are less common practice that maybe would be an advantage for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we often see is that what sellers will find themselves running something like a reverse ASIN search and just essentially taking from top competitors, highly visible competitors, the keywords that they rank for. It's a great starting place, but it's incomplete keyword research. It's essentially, it can create this this environment where you're doing the same thing as your competitor, they're doing the same thing to you, and nobody's doing anything different or anything better, essentially, to garner more visibility. So you can do that reverse ASIN search as a starting place, but we would recommend doing also a seed keyword discovery search where it welcomes ideation, brainstorming, blue ocean potential for keywords. So you're not really following those same steps as everybody else and expecting somehow to achieve a different result. So reverse ASIN, seed keyword, of course, taking your pay-to-play insights from your PPC reports, that can really help to round out your keyword research. And ideally, the last and final piece is injecting some amount of Amazon data when it comes to keyword prioritization, keyword performance, or informing some of those latter pieces when you're doing your seed keyword discovery or further empowering your reverse ASIN search. So they're almost like, it's almost like four legs to the table. If you have just one, that table is going to fall over. A more sophisticated seller is going to root it out, figure out you're doing the same thing as everybody else, and capitalize on your shortcomings. And that is a really great way to round out, get that table solid, and win the optimization game at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think you're so right to be pointing that out. That is such a good analogy. The four pillars, the four legs of the table, because everything on Amazon basically is going to perform better with good keyword research, right? The PPC campaigns, your ranking campaigns, maybe you're spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on a new product launch, and it's 25% less effective because the keyword research was not done properly, right? So that's something I always stress to people that reach out about copywriting services. It just will make everything a lot more solid, right? So maybe let's just explore that a little bit deeper. Coming up with blue ocean keyword ideas, is that just a matter of just sitting there and thinking what are other words that can describe this product? What if I was typing into Amazon, what would I be thinking of? Or are you looking at Google Trends? What are some ways to come up with those blue ocean keywords?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely make sure you find yourself going through all four of those steps. We often see just getting that part right allows for enough of a breadth of opportunity as kind of a starting place. What we have in our platform with some of the Amazon data that helps us to inform some of those decisions really allows sellers to welcome as many keyword inputs as they can get. If they have brand analytics access, we also have brand analytics on our platform as well. That's another great place to see search frequency rank, click shares, conversion shares, so you can see performance insights at the keyword level. So what it really allows you to do is take in as many inputs as possible, which I would highly encourage, because you can't really make an informed decision on a keyword if it's not on your radar, right? So if you run something like seed keyword discovery, reverse ASIN, you take your PPC pay-to-play insights, and you inject some Amazon data in there to inform that prioritization, that's really where that blue ocean really opens up. Because that's kind of the thing. It's been very interesting to see with the loophole that sort of was closed for a lot of platforms where search volume is now really historical. We have that as a reference. You can look at search volume as a trend with historical insights, but really moving forward, we've been very fortunate to have some amount of Amazon data still with a lot of our key features to where it's just a straight sort of keywords to see by relevancy and volume which keywords you should effectively prioritize. So no matter how you get it, there's more creative ways to find Amazon data. If you have things like AMS access, you have creative ways to injecting that insight. Again, I'm going to own my bias here in terms of how we do it, but think about how you can do it. If not through a platform, through your level of access through Amazon, try to figure out how Amazon prioritizes these keywords, and then you can look at things like density. But putting density first, you're kind of diving in head first into a red ocean keyword and search density and competitor focus. And that's just not a recipe for cutting through. Again, it's everybody doing the same thing and expecting a different result. It's not a great environment to try to cut through.
Yeah, and like not only does that bring everyone in, like everyone's trying to rank for those like high volume keywords, right? But it also might not even be that relevant to your product. Like if you actually look at the search results for some of these super high volume keywords, it might be a mix of 5 different types of products, and it's not actually really that beneficial for you to be ranking on there, just because people are typically looking for the really cheap one or just like some item that's not really even your item, right?
Right. Absolutely. And you'll get that information too, of course. Run those auto campaigns, do your keyword harvesting, really be active. Being proactive with keywords is just kind of do those basics. I think we continue to see it again as a keyword centric platform as well, that our customers will admit, like they know that they should be doing it more, being more active with it. But as long as Amazon stays customer centric, which as a matter of fact, they will always be, keywords are the bridge of that buyer intent. That is really the only means of a customer finding your product. So it really can't be understated how important it is to get that right.
Yeah, and that segues perfectly into, actually ranking for those keywords. So let's say we have the keywords, we identified the target keywords we want to rank for, and a few different methods of ranking for that might be, driving some traffic through your product launch or Amazon PPC or ManyChat or something like that. So I think people are fairly familiar with the concept of driving a lot of sales through a specific keyword to get ranked for it. But like, what about some of these smaller, like blue ocean or longer tail keywords that maybe they're not getting a ton of sales, but you still want to get onto page 1 for those? What would you typically do in a situation where you want to rank for some of those keywords?
Yeah, I think that really opens the door for you to consider giveaways, for lack of a better phrase. We offer, in disclosure, we offer a launch service. And I think if you were to entertain that, if you were open to the idea of giveaways, if you haven't run one before and you maybe are looking into those, it's a great way to leverage that as a tool in your toolkit, especially for low volume. That's something I really stress now with people having concerns of, you see these sprinklings of people that are getting suspended. They're first-time sellers. They're really trying to understand why this could be taking place, the things that they're doing. So they're trying to layer their understanding with a lot of things happening, kind of being thrown at them all at once. But what you really should do, and what I would recommend when and if you consider something like a launch service, is use it for those longer or mid-tail keywords. Those are perfect because you're usually giving away less units. It's not as much of a financial burden. You can get your outcome usually quicker by achieving that higher sales velocity. So those are perfect pocket kind of keywords for figuring out, hey, if I can get a result in 4 to 5 days, dial in, use an optimized URL through a service such as ours, or one that fits what your needs are. I think that's a perfect time to entertain that. The other option, kind of de facto option, would be exact match PPC in an aggressive way, because more often than not, if you review the competitive landscape, you look at what your suggested bids are, really do your numbers against that keyword. That could be another straight path to ranking for that keyword. But really, I wouldn't add a layer of unnecessary sophistication to that. Just give Amazon what it wants in terms of the sales velocity, or those click-throughs, page interactions, and sales velocity through PPC. And that's where you can gobble up those longer tail mid-range keywords.
This podcast is brought to you by Kenji ROI, a complete done-for-you service for your Amazon listing creation and optimization. Everything from product photography, including lifestyle images with a real model, graphic design images and studio images, to the copywriting and keyword optimization, to videos and enhanced brand content if you're lucky enough to have brand registry. We also manage marketing when it comes to Amazon ads, and also for some bigger sellers out there who might be interested in building a messenger list, we offer services creating the ManyChat funnels to follow up with customers for more reviews, to help build your own audience so you can launch new products, to help rank for new keywords. And there is Facebook ads management built into that as well for the right sellers. So if you want to learn more about Kenji ROI, head to KenjiROI.com. That is actually my middle name, Kenji, with the ROI added onto the end. Awesome. And so yeah, those are definitely like the clear, easy ways to get that done, right? Let's dive in a little bit more for the advanced people. A strategy using ManyChat for getting Facebook Messenger subscribers and using that basically as a launch list or following up with them for reviews. It is definitely a more advanced strategy. It's something that I know that you guys at Seller.tools know quite a lot about and have some systems built around. So I'm curious to hear, what is your take on, when is the situation to be using ManyChat versus a product launch, or are you using both of them for a product launch? I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, really, as soon as you're able and have the time and bandwidth and the resources, I would definitely encourage sellers to get into ManyChat. There's just so many boxes it checks off for an e-commerce brand owner. It's what we all wished email was in terms of the open rates, the click-through rates, the level of engagement, the media-rich aspect, the list building, the review capture, the rank. It just checks off every box that you can imagine. So rightfully, sellers should be prioritizing the implementation of some ManyChat flows in their business. That you really just have to be doing something. I just would really encourage folks to look at it heavily if they're not already doing it. So the sooner that you can implement that, the better, because and really you can cherry pick the objectives that are most fruitful for your business. Now, more often than not, that's going to be ranking and reviews, especially if you're just launching a product. So you can go through the route of Facebook ad to ManyChat ranking strategies, and then bolt on like a review capture to that. Really simple, kind of elegant way of leveraging ManyChat, and then over time adding more sophistication to that. Gamified giveaways. We're doing rebate flows. We're doing email replacement flows with customers opting out en masse to emails, autoresponders. That's a really great response to that, because you have these 20. Already email is getting a pretty bad rap in terms of its clicks, its performance, its the perceivable white noise that Amazon sellers or Amazon buyers are now experiencing. So it's a really unique and cool way where you can almost kind of do these old strategies that we used to do, where you'd say, oh, we're a small family business, your reviews mean everything. Where now you could hop on an iPhone and do a founder video and say, I'm a founder, it's me, it's personal, I add that to my ManyChat flow. It's like I said, it's just taking what we, in many ways, what we used to do, just elevating it, taking it to another level, to where if you put yourself in the shoes of a Amazon buyer, as we all are, like, yeah, this is a 5-star worthy, buying experience. I'm more apt to leave a review. I'm more apt to not leave a negative review. So there's just so much you can do with it, honestly. So definitely would encourage folks, as soon as you're able, if you're not doing ManyChat, figure out what your quick wins are, the low-hanging fruit. Because I also know when I rattle off the dozen or so benefits, people think, oh shoot, that's gonna be a tall task. Just focus on what you need. If you're just starting out, just launching a product, just get that ranking. Just focus on optimized URLs to an offer that's compelling, and then you can bolt on so many other parts and pieces.
Totally. And it's incredibly cheap to really get up and running, right? In the beginning, like getting a ManyChat Pro account is, I think, $10 a month for your first 1,000 subscribers or something like that. And, as long as you don't go crazy spending on the Facebook ads until you figure it out, you can get that up and running for, $10 a month plus a couple $100 in Facebook ads. It's pretty incredible ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. We did a video recently with one of our other co-founders. He's an 8-figure seller, and I pressed him, let's talk about some of your recent Facebook ads that you've done for your ManyChat flows. And it's literally the product image, a major call out for the percentage off, effectively the offer, and then emojis sprinkled throughout. And it probably took me about 5 minutes when he told me to do it to recreate his ad. And I just think, like I said, we can really get bogged down in the details and think, oh man, you've got to spend this time in Photoshop or really building something out complex in a resource like Canva. But just make it simple, make it an offer. Does it meet your litmus test as a buyer? If you were playing the part of your customer avatar, would it stop them in their feed? Would it engage them? Would they be interested? And then ManyChat does all the heavy lifting for you once you bring that customer in.
Oh, that's such a good point that you brought up too about getting bogged down in the details. I know that's something that a lot of people listening right now struggle with, and I have certainly struggled my fair share with, especially with marketing things, like setting up a super advanced marketing funnel before you've even ran any traffic through it. You have no idea how it's going to work, but then everything's got to be perfect, right? You have to have this page and then go into the next page, and the retargeting ad's going to retarget people from this page to the other page, follow with an email sequence, and it's a big investment to get that set up. And so many times the first or second step of the funnel is just not working properly, and people don't even make it to all the fancy shit that you set up and you spent all the hours on trying to get up there, and you just had to scrap the whole thing. So that's a very, very good point that Troy just brought up there about, just get it out, to get the bare minimum of, if you don't have the time to build a funnel, a 20 or 30 hour funnel, then build a 2-hour funnel and get it set up and get it running. It's way better.
Exactly. Yeah. Get that feedback, iterate. I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and it's like, we find, you think these complex, robust things are going to just crush anything else you do. And then you test that against something simple, almost stupid simple, and that will outperform it. Like you just never know. And until it hits the market, until there's market feedback, you just have no idea how something's ultimately going to perform.
Totally. So, I mean, my way of going about that these days is to get the minimum viable test out there as soon as possible. Just get something, just like put up a landing page that takes you like 2 seconds and has nothing fancy on it. And if that's working, then maybe make another split test version of it that's got some fancy graphics or whatever other kind of fancy stuff you want to put on there, and then you can improve upon it. But if the initial, like, you can test it with just a super, super basic landing page, super basic whatever you have going on there, right? And also something, I know you have a really good mind when it comes to systems thinking. You have a really good way of like thinking through processes and like what are the key pieces to be focusing on and how to structure those. So, what are some of the key ways of systems thinking that you think are really helpful frameworks for Amazon sellers in their businesses today?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to be cognizant of as sellers is the redundancies in our business. And so really figuring out those ways in which we can systematize a lot of those parts and pieces. So whether it's very specific objectives that we've laid out, or really defining those processes and moving to, many sellers have done a really great job of leveraging VAs at scale, but developing and utilizing the resources that are at our disposal. The scale of business you can do now as a seller, it's just insane. Teams of 2, 3, 4, 5 people doing 8 figures, the earning potential for such a small team, you're not supposed to be able to do that in a physical product business. There's supposed to be too many bottlenecks, too many ways, too many inefficiencies to realize that scale of business. But by really deploying these types of systems thinking and leveraging resources, you can do things that you're not supposed to do. And that's I think what's really exciting. So I think it's really important for sellers to think about, are they capturing those redundancies? They're doing the same thing over and over again. Is there the automation piece there? Is there the delegation piece there? I often don't see a lot of wikis being leveraged, internal resources that serve as documentation for these types of systems and processes. So I think that's hopefully a good reminder. But like I said, for the most part, what we do, it's chock full of redundancies. It's chock full of a lot of potential for automation. So really trying to welcome that eye for top-down thinking of sequences, major milestones, and the resources that are at play can usually and hopefully, again, encourage people to be thinking about this, leverage those types of things. So we do that a lot with our business, even on the SaaS, sort of the Amazon software side of things, leveraging things like Asana. We have our own internal wiki. So I'm pretty obsessive about making sure that we try to capture all of those things to where, hey, if somebody's down a day, we've essentially captured 80% of their work by virtue of, for the most part, we're doing a lot of the same things. And we give them enough room for that creative execution, that lateral thinking, because the top-down objective-driven activities are documented at the end of the day.
Yeah, and let's take a little look inside of the mind of Troy making an SOP or a process or something like that. Like let's say you've identified a process or redundancy in your business that can be repeated over and over again in the same way. What is your method of documenting that process, of like defining what exactly that is?
Yeah, if I have enough time to build a process, so let's say I'm not really pressed for time to create something quickly and offload it just as quick, what I like to do is utilize a screen capture piece of software to walk through the sequence, major milestones, and the objective of a very specific process. Then I'll hand that off to the person that's going to own that task moving forward, and I'll typically ask them to document for me those same sequence, identify any major milestones, and we'll both align effectively on the objective. And then when they own that, the creation of the process, that gets then dropped into the internal wiki. So there's kind of those 3 steps where I create it, I walk through it. It's a kind of a litmus test of if I can teach it, I know what's going on. I know exactly, what we need to walk through. And then again, video has its own benefits of being able to click through, display, see things, refine anything before it's handed off. And then by virtue of that next team member documenting everything, same litmus test. Do they know things clearly? Is there any open questions, open items for them to document that moving forward? Again, align on that objective, ultimately what we try to achieve here. And then once that's brought in-house, they effectively own it then moving forward. We link directly to that internal wiki, so it can always be referenced if it needs to be handed off, if that person is sick or out that day. The next person can hop in, see that documented process, and then own it from there.
I love that. I love that method of screen recording the video and then have the person who's actually executing it be the one who writes out the SOP and owns it and updates it as things change, right? Because I've certainly fallen into the trap of creating standard operating procedures and just making them very detailed and putting a lot of time and effort into it, only to have them change later on. Or maybe it's ran through a bunch of times by whoever is executing it, and it's clear something needs to change. And so all that hard work is gone for nothing, right? So I think that's an important piece, like actually having the person who is executing it, do it based off your video and then write it based off of their own experience executing it. I think is brilliant. And is there a particular process or SOP that you're particularly proud of getting out and standardize? That just an example for us. Is there one that really pops to mind that was a very complex situation that you managed to put into a process or SOP document?
Yeah, man. Now I'll have to think about it. Obviously, now a lot of ours are focused on Seller.tools. A lot of our processes, and we run a fairly lean operation for sure. So I think the team has done a great job of owning those processes. That's a good question. We used to have them for creation of Facebook ads, YouTube optimization. A lot of our paid traffic strategies, digital marketing, that was a big area where we offloaded a lot of that activity. And usually it was pretty multifaceted. When we really deep dove into YouTube optimization, I mean, it's like backlinks, it's creation of the video, it's editing of the video, it's description creation, it's tagging. But those are really good, that's a really good example of a multifaceted, pretty robust SOP that we documented. I'm trying to think specifically on the Amazon side. Yeah, because I really had members of my team really own, so they would have in part been delegating that. And I had with my flagship brand, I had a pretty small core team, and then they had kind of a team of VAs at the next level. So I really tried to remove those bottlenecks. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of one that really sticks out. I think I handed off, got really involved in the training of onboarding those team members. They were always extremely tapped into new resources. Every training program I took, they took. So they really own that subject matter expertise. So I'll say that I'll take credit for the fact that I did a good enough job getting them up to speed to where I was mostly hands off with that SOP creation, that process, that onboarding.
I mean, that is just a testament to your ability to systematize and pass off. So, I mean, that is a very good answer. And I mean, on my side, I would echo that. Probably the SOPs that are the most complicated, that I'm the most proud of creating, are the ones based around content. distribution. Like, for example, the one for the podcast is incredibly complex. You know, the podcast episode gets recorded and then uploaded to a folder, and like an Zapier automation auto assigns tasks to people, and then like has to get sent to the podcast editor, the video editor, someone to create a thumbnail graphic, and then post like email blast. There's just so many different pieces on something like that. It seems simple, but if you're doing all of those pieces yourself every single time, like I would be a full-time podcast guy. You know what I mean? That's and like I have a business to run. So
no, it's true. It's true. And Zapier, I mean, that is such a game changer. I mean, I wish I would have known or had it at the level it's at now with the things you can do with it. It's just so cool how it just creates a whole nother arm of your business to pull information. That's awesome. It's cool to hear you use it too for the podcast.
Oh yeah, Zapier, and like so many applications for Amazon sellers too, like integrating with ManyChat, and I know Seller.tools actually integrates with Zapier as well these days. It can replace an entire employee basically with a lot of these automations, right? Just someone moving information around and syncing things up. So if you don't have a Zapier subscription, it's free. Go do it. You definitely should be doing it.
Yes, I will echo that all day.
Awesome, Troy. And you were in a rather unique position where you do have a software company, and you have, I'd imagine you spend a decent chunk like kind of analyzing the data that you're seeing through your software and just on Amazon in general. Like, what do you see coming down the pipeline for Amazon sellers towards the second half of 2019 here? Like, what are some of the changes or the trends that you're seeing in the data that you have access to?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see this play out with some of the changes to the vendor side of things. I think that's what's going to be most interesting, because we've already seen Amazon kind of show their hand a little bit in terms of more access, more insight, more data, as they really kind of push those lower tier vendors into 3P and effectively phase out the vendor program. So we're trying to leverage that to benefit, and I think sellers should do the same when it comes to additions to Seller Central. You know, we brought up brand analytics as an example. So I think they really see, and Bezos kind of tipped his hat on this, is that they acknowledge what's happening in the FBA space. So I think they're going to really try to aim to cultivate that while managing and kind of mitigating some of the bad press they've been getting with the black hats, with the reviews, that type of thing. And so I think it's really important for sellers to think about, how do they just create a 5-star worthy buying experience? You know, I think too many times sellers find themselves trying to game the system so much that they forget that if they remove themselves, act as if they're buying their own product, would they pass that litmus test of being excited about, willing to, detailed reviews with images, with that's your home run in terms of a buying experience and a customer experience at the end of the day. So I think Amazon's going to do their part to make sure that that's what sellers want to do. But I also think it's important for us as a community that's really building substantial brands and isn't being opportunistic to a fault, that you really respond in kind and deliver these amazing experiences through your products, through your engagement, through your communication, through your resources. ManyChat, you really have to handle with care. And ManyChat's going to change as well. I mean, I know that they're making some major changes here in the next month with broadcast messaging that will require our sellers to pivot. But that's something you really have to handle it with care, because that's the upside in terms of the ability to engage and interact with customers so easily and so quickly. Can go south really fast if you don't handle that with care. So I don't know, I know I touched on a few things there, but I see all of this kind of playing out really quick here with ManyChat changes, with 3P getting more robust, with Seller Central changes as well. And I think that's where, kind of to bring it full circle, I really just encourage sellers to, when you get the basics right, go deep there. With all this volatility, all these changes, you're still strong, highly visible, organically ranking, generating sales, capturing more reviews, while everybody else is just like, looking around trying to figure out while the sky's falling around. So, yeah, I think that all plays into the larger conversation.
Troy with the banger advice once again, right there. I love advice like that, because it is just based on fundamental truths. It's not around, hey, focus on this marketing tactic and you will be successful in 2019. It is a fundamental truth of business of what you're saying right there. And that trend has been percolating since the beginning of Amazon, where a lot of people had success just white labeling and just putting up some hack product and with 2 pictures on it, and it was great. And slowly it's developing to where, hey, surprise, you actually need to create a good product and a great brand to be successful on Amazon, just like a real business, right? And that is not the sexy advice, but that is the real advice. And I do see people all the time. They come to the agency and they're like, hey, we just need to pump up our review rate back up to 4.5 star average or 4-star average. But then we look into it and we realize like these are not black hat competitors coming in and giving them 1-star reviews. These are real customers that don't like their product. There's something wrong with the product. It's just not good. So doing some hack to bump your review rate back up is not going to do anything. It's going to be a band-aid on your crappy product. But if you create a great product in the beginning, you can have a bunch of people coming in leaving 1-star reviews, and it's not going to affect it, because all your customers are going to be excited. They love your brand. You create a good product, and that takes care of itself, instead of you trying to have to look for hacks and loopholes and all these little things, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that is so true. So true. And I can see where sellers overlook this. It's kind of weird, but it's sort of counterintuitive. You think, oh, of course, you want to deliver a great product. But when we go, I think sometimes through the rote process of sourcing a product that's lightweight, that's at this price point, like you kind of follow these same steps, and you walk into the saturation that we can often see in the FBA space. And then you have a commoditized product at the end of the day, and then you're not doing anything different in keyword research. And it's really unfortunate to see, but I think if we can get the good word out, people can kind of reflect and think, hey, well, if I do this slightly differently, or I take this feedback and I implement this slightly differently, that those can be force multipliers. Small things can add up, and they can have synergy in and of themselves.
So powerful. Well, Troy, this has been an absolutely jam-packed episode. I love everything we talked about here, just like real concrete advice from someone who's done it. Troy is a 7-figure earner, and he is one of the smartest voices in the space today, in my opinion. So really glad to have you on here. If you guys want any of the show notes, those can be found at actualizedfreedom.com. And Troy, if people want to find out more about what you do or reach out to you online, where can they do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our Facebook group, FBA Kings. It's a really great, awesome, supportive community. So we'd love to hear from you there. And then, of course, Seller.tools is our platform. If you have any questions about it, you can always reach us at hello@seller.tools. And we'd love to hear from you. Either way, it'd be great to hear from everybody.
Awesome, Troy. Well, thank you so much for your time. And guys, if you haven't already, please go onto iTunes, Stitcher, whatever crazy podcast app you're listening to, and go leave us a review or 25 reviews. Go open up a bunch of Chinese bot accounts on iTunes and leave us like 500 reviews on iTunes. I would love that. So until next time, guys, take care, and we'll chat soon. This podcast is sponsored by the Helium 10 suite of tools, and we at Kenji ROI have been using Helium 10 for more than 3 years now. They have so many tools packed into one, I don't think that there's a better value, and we use it all the time for ourselves and our clients, so we can actually recommend it from real experience. We use their keyword tracker to see how our product launches are doing, the keyword indexing tool to ensure that you're actually showing up for your main keywords. Super, super important step right there. And also Magnet and Cerebro, a really powerful combination for finding keywords your competitors are using, or just finding new keywords to put into your listing in general. You should be using this on, at least a monthly basis to see if any new keywords are coming up, because new searches are coming up all the time, guys. Like, people are searching on Google. I forget the number, but a huge percentage of those searches are brand new, never been done searches. So if you guys want a discount code, you can use 50 Kenji ROI for 50% off your first month of Helium 10, or 10 Kenji ROI for 10% off for life. So that's a pretty good discount. You might as well. We use them and recommend them for years. So if you guys need that, you guys will definitely get good value out of Helium 10.
For show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, visit kenjiroi.com.